Welcome to the Startup Sessions, the #1 web show and podcast for trusting your gut, breaking the rules, and starting something meaningful. Featuring in-depth interviews with acclaimed creative entrepreneurs that have succeeded at building their own remarkable businesses. My guest today is a shining example of someone that listened to her internal voice and chose the path that made her feel most alive. Marni Renison is joining me on the show today, and we'll be digging into her journey from having a great corporate job in the biomedical industry to starting and running a successful nonprofit organization called the Fit Project. If you've been ignoring that little voice inside that's calling you to do something different, or wondering if you're brave enough to start something that really makes a difference in the world, then you're going to be hanging on to every word that Marni has to say. It's all coming to you right now on episode 38 of The Startup Sessions. Welcome to The Startup Sessions. My guest today resigned from a corporate job where she spent 12 years creating that and made a transition to follow her heart and start a nonprofit where she helps people with nutrition, fitness, and improving their overall lifestyle. So I'm very excited to be speaking with Marni Renison today, founder and director of the Fit Project. Welcome to the show, Marni.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So here's the deal. Marni's a runner. She just got back from her run. She just got out of the shower.
I did indeed.
So we're seeing the real deal here today. So I'm super excited to have you on the show, Marni. You've got a lot of great stuff that I'm excited to talk about today and share with the audience. Just a quick intro. Marni launched the Fit Project, which is her project to really connect underprivileged people to resources in our community and educate them on fitness, nutrition, overall wellness, some of the things that a lot of us take for granted. And Marni, I think from what I gather from what you do, you really want to see and have a strong desire to see health and wellness available to anyone who seeks it. Is that correct?
Definitely. I think it's a matter of knowledge.
Yeah.
The thing that separates people that are healthy from unhealthy really, I think, is a matter of knowledge and empowerment. That's what I love that.
Okay. That's great. So Marni is also a competitive runner. She's very involved in Portland's only all-women's track team called Athena. Am I right on that?
Yeah, Team Athena. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. You've been married 12 years. You married your college sweetheart. You've got 2 beautiful girls, and you live right here in Portland, Oregon.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay, so I think what we're going to do today is talk about moving towards your calling, how to make that transition from a corporate career to doing meaningful work that really calls you more than anything, and focusing on a few things that you've learned over the last couple of years in your business, some key insights that I think will be really, really helpful for people. So let's get started with your background, Marni. Tell us a little bit about the Fit Project and what inspired you to start it in the first place.
So the Fit Project is a nonprofit. We used to only go into low-income areas and offer free dietitians, personal trainers, gym memberships, life coaches to families who were really ready for that transition. And we've actually moved away from just going into low income and moving into the healthcare organizations. And that basically is because no matter where you are in the affluency spectrum, I think everybody needs knowledge about lifestyle and nutrition and fitness. And so we're no longer working in only low income. We're working within the healthcare organizations now.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's a little bit about the Fit Project.
Okay, great. And I'll link up your website on the show notes for this episode so everybody can easily access that. Great. So Marni, what inspired you to go from a successful career in the corporate environment to starting the Fit Project?
Well, I think that's a long answer, probably longer than we have. But I think that we all have a voice inside. Some of us choose to listen to it, some of us try to stifle it, and some of us pretend it's not there altogether.
Hmm.
And I think eventually that voice, we try to keep going forward as much as we can and stay this path that we think we ought to be taking, but this voice just keeps getting louder.
Hmm.
And my voice was recognizing the hiccup in the healthcare organizations and the healthcare landscape truly, with how much money was being put into patient education materials and disease state management education. And they get, patients get 5 to 7 minutes within a clinician room with their doctor, but then they go home and they just carry on their same habits. And so nothing changes, and therefore their medications don't work as well as they could. And they're not living the lifestyle that they truly have the potential to live because they don't know what that looks like. So the reason why I started the FIT project was because I noticed that hiccup in the healthcare organizations and in the healthcare landscape. And truly, I had something that I wanted to share in regards to lifestyle and how to live how I think people should live their best life.
Okay,
I
great.
don't I don't want to sound like I mean that sounds kind of like I have the answer. I don't mean it that way, but I look at people and they really just don't have the same knowledge that most people take for granted. And so I
Hmm.
just want to see equality in empowerment and in knowledge in regards to our own health, because it's our health. We should have the same knowledge as everybody else around us. So it's more about equality.
Okay, great. And health, in your case, I mean, you're a very active person. You're a runner. You're someone who's healthy. Um, that seems like a natural fit for you. Like you're. What I love to see is people, really bridging all of who they are, their talents, their desires, their skills, into that direction that they're most passionate about. And that seems like that's the path that you've clearly taken with the FIT project and the work that you do.
Hmm.
So, was there a pivotal, a moment or a turning point where you decided, I've got to do this? Was there any one thing that kind of really caused you to say, okay, I'm going to make that leap from my corporate career to creating something?
Yeah, I think you're gonna probably think it's a little crazy, but there's this a girlfriend and I were running one morning, and we were talking about being able to do anything that, and I would say, I'd start a nonprofit, and she said, "Oh, you should start a running group," and I said, "I don't want to start a running group," and she said, "But and with kids," and I said, "It doesn't matter what you teach kids, because if their parents aren't involved, the kids are just going to adopt their parents' habits." I said, "You really need to work with the entire family," and that's what kind of born the idea of the FIT project. But if you rewind about a year prior to that conversation with the same friend, we were talking about not feeling as spiritually connected as we have in the past. And we were going to do something called 52 weeks. And every week we're going to go to a different church throughout the year. And we made it through about April. And we went to a different church every week. And we saw a lot of different churches. A lot of different churches. But there was one church in particular that I actually have always called my home base here in Portland, and they did a service called once. It was on like some service that they did, I think somewhere in South Africa. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it was. I don't remember where they did it, but it was a mission, and there was a song that played afterwards called "Once You Know You Are Responsible," and I took that to heart, because I thought, once you know you're responsible, once you know and you recognize the problem, you're responsible for fixing it. And I really took that to heart, and I think it was probably about 6 weeks later that I resigned, because I just knew that was the message that I needed from the universe, that I was going in the direction I was supposed to go. And I went to that church service by myself, totally last minute decision to go, and I knew that was the message I was supposed to hear that day. So that's kind of what nudged me. Like, you're on the right path. Keep going.
Yeah. That's such a powerful message and moment. And often I find that people who are on their path and following their meaning do have that pivotal moment. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. What was the hardest part about quitting your corporate job to follow your heart and start something that you really believed in?
The money. Hands down. I mean, I'm human. I like stuff. I like doing nice things with my family. I like having security and retirement, my kids' college education and stuff like that. And walking away from what was, quite frankly, a very lucrative career to make zero money is something that eats at me all the time. I just really, I have faith, and I believe that when you do the right thing comes back to you. Mm-hmm. And I also knew that when I was in my career and I was making a great living, I also knew that there was a part of me that wasn't alive. And that was harder for me to live with than the part of me that can't go shopping like I used to. You know what I mean? It's a trade-off. And I think the hardest thing is walking away from the financial security.
Okay.
I mean, I think somebody would be lying or independently wealthy if they didn't say that on some level. Yeah.
No, I appreciate your honesty. That's a very straightforward, raw, and honest answer that I think anyone who gets used to that corporate lifestyle and the expense accounts and the 401k and all that, like, you have to come to terms with that when you step away. You know, and the other side of that, I know you're fairly early in your project, and what you're doing is, you know, like you said, you begin to do something that you're in alignment with, and that's more important. That feeling of doing something that makes you come alive. There's no financial reward, I think, that can ever be greater than that feeling of doing something that has meaning. And I think the other side of that is, if you dedicate yourself to it and you focus on it, that the money part comes around.
I agree with you. I really do. And I don't know if I'll ever make what I used to be making, but I don't really care. Yeah. I don't really need to be making what I used to be making. I need to be making what I need to be able to live and live a happy and healthy life. And then, you know, my currency is the way I give back to my community and how that makes me feel. That's my currency right now. And it's been my currency and drive for 3 years.
Yeah.
Because it's been an 100% volunteer organization, including myself, for 3 years.
Okay. All right. Great. So what I want to do now is talk about some of the most important, I guess you could call them lessons learned, experiences that you've gained that I think could be really helpful to a lot of other people that want to do meaningful work and follow, you know, maybe a similar path that you've followed. So I really want to leverage some of your experience and insight here. And I took a look at, as I said earlier, I took a look at a blog post from your website, and it was really inspired by some of the things that you had to say, some of the things that you've learned over the course of following your heart and building this business and taking on this project. So I'm hoping that we can go through some of these. I think they're just brilliant points.
I hope I remember what I
wrote. So I've got them written down here. So the first one was, ideas really do create tomorrow. What did you mean by that?
I think that sometimes when we have an idea, we expect things to land in our lap. Like, if we have an idea, we expect it to be easy to get there. And I think that when you have an idea, that's what sets things in motion to create that future. I think that it kind of tells the universe what direction you want to go, and suddenly there's a gravitational pull that pulls you there. But until you have that awareness, until you have those ideas and really believe it, I don't think that anything happens. And so for people, when they have ideas, I think it's imperative to interact with those ideas and not to instantly say, oh, well, that will fail, or here are the problems that would occur if you tried that. Because there's going to be problems with anything you try. Even if you stay in your safe zone, there's going to be problems.
Yeah. Okay. That's a great point. I know I spent 14 years in the corporate world as well, and I had many ideas over the course of that 14 years. And it wasn't until I finally just could not ignore like how loud the ideas were. And I knew, you get to a certain point where you just kind of realize it's, time is not infinite, and I needed to act on them sooner than later. Otherwise, they just remain ideas and they continue to get muted and they just kind of fade away. So I love that. I love that concept about ideas.
But you know what I also think? I think that when you ignore those ideas and you continue to ignore your spirit dies. Because you have to pay attention to that voice or it goes away. And when you lose your inner voice and you lose that channel where you can listen, you can't hear anymore. Yeah. And then you're just numb to life. You're just going through life, how you ought to be living it, or you're going through the motions in the way that people think you ought to be doing because you can't hear anymore. You have, just like anything, just like any relationship, the relationship that we have with ourselves, we have to foster that. Yeah. And that means listen. When it's telling you to do something that scares the shit out of you, you still have to listen. Yeah. Yeah. Say shit.
Yeah. No, that's powerful. That really is. I mean, that's like the one we could spend the whole interview on this subject alone, Marni.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's so important though. It really is, because I think so many of us have, we all have that intuition, that whatever you want to call it, inside of us that calls us to do greater things than what we're currently doing. Even if we're in the midst of some special project like you're doing, you're continually getting ideas and insights onto how you move that forward, how you expand it, how you can be bigger in the world at what you're doing. So that's so important to listen to. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
All right. The next point I like a lot as well. It makes me think about a lot of things that I've experienced in my first year of being an entrepreneur. But you say that not everything is going to work, but the single act of trying will create change. I mean, that says a lot in and of itself, but can you expand on that a little bit as well?
I think it's because when you work with a team, and that really came out, that idea was born out of me working I work with a team of people, and we're all emotionally, physically, mentally invested in the FIT project. I launched it, but I had the support of my friends and my family to launch it, and so of course I bounce ideas off of. And when one of us would have an idea, and not everyone would agree on the idea, I think it's still important to move forward and try something. If it's not the exact idea, try the idea morphed into something that you think will work, because ideas create tomorrow, right? Ideas create the future. And so without movement, there's not change. And I think that ideas create that movement, that create the change, that develop the program into what it's supposed to be. So I think that's where that came from. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It does. And it makes me just think about, you never really, I had a guest recently say, you just got to, at some point you just got to try. And the more you try, you're going to have some failures in there with ideas, but really they're not failures. They really inform your next steps for your business, your project.
It creates a new landscape from which you make decisions.
Yeah.
So the landscape looks different. Once you try something, the landscape looks different, and you're making those decisions based on that new landscape as opposed to the old one.
Yeah, well said. Love it. Okay, so that's great. The next point that you make is that it's more important to respect people's boundaries than to force something that will upset your team. So I'm interested in hearing more about that one.
Yeah, that's basically, not as a director and ED the Fit Project, not everyone gives me the answers that I want, right? I mean, I'd love if everyone would, work as hard at Fit as I do. I would love if they all donated their time like I did. We would be much further ahead. But I think it's more important for people to give their boundaries, and give the boundaries from which they can provide their best self, and respect those boundaries, because that's when you're getting someone's greatest effort. And if for instance I push someone, if I'm like, oh, okay, I respect your boundaries, but can you do this on a Saturday night instead? The whole corporate America thing, right? We want you to have life balance, but can you do this on, during the weeknights and blah, 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 and this and that, and skip your run because we have a meeting and you have to be 10 minutes early? And, it's about respecting people's boundaries no matter what they look like. If you want them on your team, respect where they're at, so they will respect. It creates this mutual respect, and you get their best self, you get their biggest energy. Mm-hmm. Instead of having them come out, if you don't respect their boundaries and you're asking them to do things outside of what they want to do, you're going to deplete them a lot faster, and then they're not going to want to be involved at all.
That's a huge thing.
I have a really long answer. I'm sorry.
No, it's great. It's great. It makes me think about, like, over the course of my career, I had one boss that I can think of that I respected and worked probably harder for than any others, because she respected me, and she said the first day that I went to work for this, it was a tech startup company. She said, "You know what? You're gonna be able to be far more successful in this role if you take care of yourself, whatever that means to you." And I respect it, and it was a very autonomous position, but just having that support to support myself, whatever that meant, whether it was physical or a mental, emotional, really meant a lot to me, and that's rare in the corporate world for sure. So that's great to hear that that's a piece of what you're building at the Fit Project.
I'm very, very protective of my team. I always say that, and what I mean by protective is that if they can't make something, or if they can't do something, or if they want to do something, you think about the alternative. You make somebody on your team upset. What's it really going to cost? Nothing. What's it really going to cost for your boss to say, you can go work out for 2 hours in the morning so you have life balance. What's that really going to cost, and what's she going to gain from that? It's a risk versus benefit. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I've had a similar boss in my experience, and I still talk to him, and he is my mentor, and I would, till this day, I'd still do stuff for free just because I think he's an amazing person, and he's been an amazing mentor to me.
Yeah. Great. All right. Your next point is that bad energy is a cancer that starts small and grows. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really, a lot of these points are just respecting the people that you work with, and making sure that everyone's voice is heard, because I think that when people volunteer, they're working for free, and I think it's really important to make sure to find out what people want out of volunteering. And I don't mean, why do you want to volunteer? Like the classic interview question. The reason why I want to know why people want to volunteer is because I want to give them what they're looking for. If they want to feel like a rock star for going back to their community and giving back to their community, I want to be able to make them feel like a rock star. If they need internship hours for school, I want to give them internship hours for school, whatever they're looking for. And so if you don't give people what they're looking for, they're going to get upset. And when they get upset, people talk, and that's what creates cancers in organizations, and you have a mess on your hands. And so it's a lot easier to respect people's boundaries, make sure that they're thriving individually, and they're giving you what they want to give, and you're giving them back what they expect.
Okay. That's, I think, really, really important. And especially if you're growing something like you are, where people are volunteering their time, it may be even more important, where the compensation is it's different, People are giving their time. and the mutual respect there is probably even more important. I don't know if it's more important, but it's so important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is an interesting point that you made that I'm curious to get your perspective on. And you stated that over the course of the last 2 years, that your professional knowledge and experience is respected, and you're learning to trust it.
Hold on. Yeah. Hi. There I am. Sorry. My computer went off. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think that there comes, when you're in your like mid-30s, or, you're kind of getting your career going, and I don't think you realize how much you know until people respond to how much you know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, It's true. I mean, I think that all of us know a lot more than we think we do.
Yeah.
And so when I used to I worked for the biotech industry for, 12, 15 years. I worked for Genentech for many years in immunology, and I loved my job, great organization. And when I went into the healthcare organizations to start talking about the FIT project, I was able to speak their language. And I also, because I was the director of the FIT project, I didn't hesitate to speak my mind. And I think that I used to, and probably all of us professionally, we used to be a little bit more observed in regards to our opinion. But I think when you present things in a professional, poised, in good intention way, I think you learn more by presenting those ideas. And, so that really comes from the idea that in sharing about the FIT project to people of, B-level corporate status, they were responding to me like I was a professional, like I knew what I was talking about. And I was like, wow, I really do know what I'm talking about. And I think it took a while for me to believe it, I mean, when you launch a nonprofit, you put executive director on the bottom because you launched it, but it doesn't really mean that you think you're the executive director. I mean, that comes later. All the title and the stuff and the websites and the things and the whatever, you're constantly talking about stuff as though you're about 5 years ahead of where you actually are. Mm-hmm. And that's how you get there.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody ever really says that, but I think it's true. Yeah. And so yeah, people do respect me for my professional background. And I think it's taken me a long time to accept that respect, because I've never really viewed myself in that way. Not that I have like confidence issues or anything. I think we all do to some extent, but it just took a while for me to believe my own title.
Yeah.
Does that is that weird?
Oh. No, that's not weird at all. I think that's one of the probably the biggest, most prevalent issues that especially people starting their own projects that are meaningful meet up against, is they don't trust that knowledge and experience that they have. Mm-hmm. And if somehow you were able to do that, I love your approach with thinking of, your business or yourself like 5 years into the future and acting from that perspective, and operating from that perspective. That makes a lot of sense to me. I've never heard it said quite like that before, Marni. And I really love that because, I think we all get kind of what we're perceiving. We put that out there and that's what comes back to us. And if we're thinking 5 years ahead, I think that puts us on a course to get what we want much, much sooner, to have that clarity, I know somebody who actually does what you just recommended. He does it very well. And his business, I was just speaking with him this last weekend at Wanderlust, and he told me, he goes, I hit my 5-year plan in 3 years. And it's because he was always operating as if he was already there in that 5-year plan. Mm-hmm. So I love that one. Thank you. Thanks for sharing your perspective on that. All right, your next point is that people want to help. They just need to be asked. Mm-hmm.
I think that especially in the city of Portland and where we live in a very active, health-conscious community. And I think that most people want to be able to offer any knowledge that they have, and they want to be able to share. They love the idea of doing it. They just need to be invited, and I think they need, and And of course they don't, in my experience, they don't want to do it too much because, they have their own life they want to lead. But I think people do want to give back to their community. They just need the opportunity and channel to do it.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that even on a wider scale of, if you've got an idea and you want to gain support or find out even if it would be supported by others, a lot of people are afraid to ask. And I always say, I tell my clients, choose 25 people that might be an ideal client for what you want to do and just go ask them, get their feedback. And people are always just surprised at the level of honesty and support. So there's a lot of power in asking, for sure.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. This is a point that it'll be great to hear your perspective on as well. People either think it's crazy or inspiring to leave a corporate career to run a nonprofit. I think it's both. I love that.
I do think it's both. Yeah, I think it's. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I was agreeing with you.
Yeah, I think that I think it's both. I think it's inspiring for obvious reasons, and I think that it's crazy for obvious reasons. I mean, all the crazy reasons are fear-based, and all the inspiring reasons are spiritually based. And so, so it's both.
Yeah.
I envy the person who could, walk away from, a career and start a nonprofit and not have any, fear. But the whole no fear, run straight into your fears thing. Of course you have fears. Of course we all have fears, but you have to. So it's both. That's funny.
And you know what? I mean, honestly, to the people that have great ideas and bring them to fruition, I mean, it's not the tried and true path. It's a little bit crazy. It's a little bit, just going with the idea, launching it out there into the world. I don't know if you're not crazy, but it's just not the norm. You've got to have a little bit of an edge to do that and to believe in that success and to take it forward. Anybody who does that in any capacity is not your just average person. So.
Yeah, thank you. I do believe I think it's a unique thing to jump off and know that there's a parachute, but not know what color it is.
Yeah.
And that's exactly where I am right now. I mean, I think the thing that helped me, to be honest with you, to be able to jump and realize that I will survive is a couple things. I trust in my resiliency to overcome any mistake. I believe in my own marketing ability and my own resiliency to get a job if I need one. I believe in that, and it took me a long time to say that. Yeah. But I've had 2 children, and I could take this in a really funny direction because I've had 2 kids and teaching you about fear. But with each one of them, my husband and I decided that was best for our family is that I was going to be at home with both of them. And so when my firstborn was born, I quit my job and I stayed home for 2 years. And I went back to work when it was time, and I worked my ass off, and I worked my way back up to where I was, and then I had a second baby. And I stayed home for 2 years. And so I went in and out of the corporate world because of my kids. And I felt like anyone who didn't want to hire me because I chose to be the sole caretaker of my child because that was the best thing for our family, then I didn't want to work for them anyway. And but the people who I ended up actually quitting my job and going back to the same manager because we had such aligned values when it came to how our families raised kids, and his wife did something similar. So I think my point in sharing that story is that leaving Genentech to start the Fit Project, I know I'll be okay because I've done it before. because I've had kids,
Yep.
you know, and I think anyone that would look at me and go, you know, I don't know, you're not stable because you left to start this nonprofit. You know, I think to myself, anyone that would look at that as a negative thing, I really don't want to work for them anyway.
I love that.
Because I think it's an amazing experience that I've had.
Yeah. And that's operating from a place of strength rather than scarcity too, which is an admirable quality. Anyone that's looking for an employee, if that were an option in the future, is going to admire that.
Yeah, I hope so.
All right. Okay, so your next point is there's nothing more fulfilling than seeing your idea make a difference in the lives of people. You get to see that directly on a individual basis. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I don't want to cry, but it's something that, you know, if I went away, the FIT project would go away. And there's a lot of people that the FIT project has helped. Mostly it's helped people learn about how to eat, how to read nutrition labels, what they mean, how to protect themselves against, you know, the way our way our food industry markets to us. So, you know, there's a 12-year-old girl who couldn't fit into her jeans, and she had self-confidence issues, and she didn't want to participate in the activities, and she's very shy. All of this in the very beginning of the project. By the end of the year, because it's a 6-month project, by the end of the year, she's engaged in the activities. She told one of our life advisors that she's now able to fit into her jeans, and she felt awesome. Her confidence was better. I mean, to watch the children's energy shift from this closed and confined to open and okay with themselves, I think is something that fills my heart. And, you know, teaching women that they are enough and that they are not a number, and that they need to take care of themselves so they can be full enough to take care of their family, I think makes a direct difference. And yeah, I have to say it's not even really me who's providing this. It's my team. They're the ones that go out and, you know, are meeting these families and working out with these families and creating the opportunities that they all experience. So it's not even really me. It's me creating the channel to bring these people together.
Yeah. That's powerful. You're doing, I mean, the work you're doing, you know, in the one example of the 12-year-old girl, I mean, that's a game-changing, life-changing effect with the work that you're doing. That person now has a new foundation from which to live, and she's had that feeling of like feeling really good about, well, feeling not so good about herself, and then actually learning what to do to feel good about herself.
It's a great example of cause and effect.
Yeah.
You know, there's a cause and there's effect to everything we do. People act either out of desperation or inspiration. It's the only reason why people do anything. They're either inspired or they're desperate.
Good point. All right. This is a big point for I think anyone that's questioning whether to do a meaningful project or a business. And I want to hear your perspective on it. And you say, for every one person who turns you down, there are 4 who will help you.
I think that, that's mainly just because people are going to say no, and you have to be okay with that answer, and you have to respect it. I mean, people would tell me no, and I can't get mad at them. You know, I appreciate their honesty. I appreciate them knowing their boundaries. If they told me yes and they didn't do it, then I'd be really mad because there'd be 50 people that it would affect. So, you know, it's easy to, it's just good. It's good that people say no because it means that they're saying what they need and what they want. But yeah, there's more people out there that would say yes. So it's really important to just not stop.
Yeah. Okay. Great. All right. And then the last point that I want to ask you about, you say, when I get nervous, which is often, I remember there's a greater force behind me who has taken me this far. Just keep moving forward. Biggest lessons learned following your heart into business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you read the first part of that again?
Yeah. When I get nervous, which is often, I remember there is a greater force behind me who has taken me this far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Because we all face risk in anything that we do.
Mm-hmm.
We all face rejection. We all face the what if it doesn't work out. But we also have an opportunity to trust and have faith and, live in that space, like you alluded to earlier, where we feel the most alive that we possibly can because we're doing that work or that project that we know that we need to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I just love that you acknowledge that, yeah, you get nervous.
I'm scared on like a weekly basis. We're launching the Fit Project in 2 really big hospitals in Portland this fall, and wow. I am frightened. But yeah. I also know that this is the exact direction that I've always wanted to take the Fit Project, and there are signs, hand over fist, there's a lot of dead space when you start things. But every once in a while, there's going to be like the little wins that come. And you're like, yes, I'm on the right path. Yes, okay, I'm on the right path. But we have to be perceptive enough to see those things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it. All right. Okay, Marni, how about we shift over into the lightning round? What do you say?
Okay. Remind me again what that was.
Sure. So that's 5 questions. People love to know a little bit about my guests and what makes, like what books they're reading, what tools they're using, that sort of thing. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions around those things.
Okay.
All right. So most influential book for you?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I think The Tipping Point was good. I think there's a book called You Are a Badass that I think is a phenomenal book.
Yeah.
There's a book called Stop Saying You're Fine. I think that, and it's all about pushing boundaries. It's all about stepping out of yourself.
Yeah.
I think the best book I've ever read that opened me up to really creating our future and creating our own space is called a book by Victoria Moran called Creating a Charmed Life.
Mm-hmm.
That's a solid book. And then, of course, Brene Brown, Daring Greatly. I think I quit my job like the week after I read that book, and I read it in a weekend.
Okay.
So that was a solid book, too. So there's a number of them. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, that's all right. Best conference or industry event, and why?
Oh, oh gosh, I don't know. There was a Baron Baptiste yoga intensive that I went to in British Columbia, 12-hour intensive that was amazing. It was last year. That was I was sent by Lululemon to go to that. That was a pretty powerful experience to see that many people with good intention and moving through spaces that were pretty scary all in one spot.
Yeah.
So I think that was awesome.
Okay. Most effective strategy for growing your business or project?
Checking your ego at the door and allowing people to give you candid advice and feedback and accepting it with grace and professionalism.
Okay. Wow. That's great. Favorite business tool or resource?
My people.
Love it.
My team. I know that's probably, I could tell you about Excel spreadsheets and things that, that work in regards to tools, but my tools are, well, my people aren't tools, but my team and my network and the people, my relationships,
Yeah.
my network
Okay.
of people and friends. That is what has carried this. I can't say it enough. It is absolutely my community and my team that has created the Fit Project. It's been less of me and more of them. Really has been.
Okay.
I can't say it enough because it's absolutely true.
Cool. All right. And this last question is one that's near and dear to me because I love adventure and I love to see how that runs in the background and impacts people as they grow their businesses and their projects. So what is the most recent exciting adventure or your favorite hobby or some mix of those things?
Most recent probably would be, oh man, a very, very spontaneous girls' weekend down to Eugene to go race a 5K and 10K race. You know, very spontaneous. We all went, we all placed, and we drove home. So I don't know if that really is kind of the adventure that you're looking for, but
sure.
But yeah, these are the things that runners do.
Yeah. No, I think it's so cool. I mean, I have an appreciation for running because Jill and I do it. We do it as, it's clearly a hobby, but we love it. We love the movement. We love running in Forest Park. We love going and doing a race here and there and seeing new places. But you're like serious. You're a serious runner. It's a serious
well, it's serious,
hobby for you, right?
I'm not elite level. I mean, I put my miles in every week, and I'm certainly training, and I have a coach and all of that. But I'm not an elite level runner. So I'm competitive in my own way.
Yeah. Yes, you are. Okay, Marni. Thank you so much for taking time to walk us through some really important perspectives and lessons and things that you've learned over the last 2 or 3 years getting the Fit Project up and running. These are all things that my audience these are things that are important to them and that they are yearning to hear. So I really appreciate you sharing those with us. In terms of people getting in touch with you about helping with the Fit Project in any capacity, I know my wife Jill came and donated her yoga teaching to a class that you held. But there's a lot of ways I know that people can get in, can serve in your organization. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Probably through our website, our email. Our website has job descriptions on there and ways to get involved, and they definitely can email either me directly or they can just email through the contact page on the Fit Project. Okay.
And again, I'll make sure to put that link up on episode 38, thefitproject.org. Great. Yeah. All right. What's one final thought that you might have for people that are considering starting a meaningful project, following their heart and following through with that?
Mm-hmm. I think they have to think about what life will be like when that voice goes away, Yeah. Because when you don't foster the relationship with yourself, there's a part of you that loses trust that will even respond to what we really want. Uh-huh. And that part, once that part dies, it's very hard to hear anymore. So I think to look at the other side instead of looking at the fear, look at what we're going to gain in the experience. Okay. I mean, I might not be pulling in a paycheck right now, but for the last 3 years, I feel like I have some professional development that I otherwise would not have received if I stayed in the same job. Okay. So. Great. Yeah. All right. Marni Renison from the Fit Project. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. All right. You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Yes, indeed. Thank you, everyone, for listening and viewing. And stay tuned for another new episode of the Startup Sessions next week. Thanks very much. Bye-bye. What an inspiring discussion that was. It's not just anyone that has the vision, heart, and perseverance to jump from a well-paying corporate job to following their heart and building an organization that makes a big difference in the world. And it's people like Marni Renison that inspire me to get up every day and do the work that I do. I often think, if I can help one more person understand that the world really wants to support their big ideas, then I can sleep better at night.
And Marni shared so many valuable ideas in today's show. And the ones that really stood out for me were knowing that the single act of trying will create positive change. And that once we understand our path, then it's our responsibility to follow it. I also found it super important to treat your business today like you want it to look 5 years from now. Really think about that. Would you change the decisions you make tomorrow morning if your business were 5 years more mature? Start thinking and acting as if you had already achieved the success that's in your 5-year business plan and see if that makes a difference in how you approach your day. And lastly, people really do want to support you. Some will say no, and that's okay. There are others that will say yes to what you're offering. Your only job is to find the ways to connect with them. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to head on over to thestartupsessions.com for a full recap of all our episodes, including links to amazing resources for each guest, thoughtful and provoking blog articles, and many other great resources. Thank you so much for listening and watching. And if today's guest can create a meaningful business and achieve a life of freedom through a business with soul, why can't you?